Hi, I'm Sunday Oliver, and this is my healing for overwhelm, exhaustion, and outrage. And I want to say right from the start that it's not about making those calm down so you can go back to your ordinary life, because quite honestly, I don't think anybody is going to be going back to anything ordinary or what we thought of as ordinary anytime soon. And I guess that might sound dire to some of you, but I think it's just the reality that it's time for us to accept. And that is indeed why we are so overwhelmed and exhausted, and possibly part of the reason why we're outraged too, because the world is not as we thought it was. And, well, at least not as some of us thought it was. But between the pandemic and the really clear truth, in my country, we murder Black people for absolutely no reason whatever. It's really time to reassess what ordinary means, I think. So I'm not going to go into that too much because, in some ways, I think it's a really personal choice right now. And that's the reason why I'm doing this healing, because I think it's really time for us to ask ourselves, okay, given who I am, given what my talents are, given what or who I have access to, what can I do here to make the world a more harmonious place? What can I do to bring power that is harmonious into the world? And that's something that will make life better for you and all of us, I truly believe, if we ask ourselves and answer those questions. But we can't ask and answer those questions in a frayed, rattled, exhausted, overwhelmed, outraged frame of mind. Some of that may just have to stay there. But if it's not in the background, if it's the thing that's just kind of bigger than you are at the moment, then you've come to the right place, because this is what this healing is for. In order to ask ourselves the question, what are my next steps? What can I do? What are my talents? What do I have access to? What is it for me personally to do in this web work here? We need to be in touch with our intuitions, because our intellects are not going to cut it here. And actually, neither are our emotions. They are both important, but they are not the deepest, most clear guidance and power that we have access to. And I would like as many people as possible to have really good access to that, given that it's an ongoing thing, given that you have to continue to work at that connection just the way you'd work at any relationship with your inner guidance. So, another name for inner guidance is intuition. If that's a more helpful name for you, that's fine. And your intuition, all of our intuitions, are what are going to help us find ways to move forward and address what needs to be addressed, to find our own ways of contributing more beauty and harmony in the world. So first, what I'm going to do, this is going to be a fairly long series of healings. It may run longer than my healing work often does on my calls. They're usually about half an hour. This one may be longer. And there's a reason for that. There are a lot of layers of healing here to get to the point where we can be essentially restored enough to ourselves to have access to that guidance without all kinds of static and in between us. So first, I'm going to do some work that will get us back into our bodies and help us be in the present. Because when we're knocked sideways by 40 things at once, we do tend to leave our bodies. It's in shamanic world, it's called, soul separation or fragmentation of soul fragmentation. And it happens to all of us, and it's just something we need repair work on. So that's going to be some of the first healing work that I'll be doing. Because again, if we don't take the time to do that, if we rush ahead on an emotional impulse or on a thought impulse or a combination of the two, it's highly likely that our actions are not going to be all that effective. And they also may drain us, which means that we can't consistently do them. And consistently doing action to create harmony and beauty in the world, that's really important, consistency. And I say this with a bit of irony because it's something I've had a hard time learning myself, but I recognize it as true. I recognize it as the thing that got me from being on the edge of death for a few years and in really torturous pain to being able to do stuff like this and to feel mostly normal. So I recognize it as a power that has a lot of ability to shift physical life. And I'd like you to consider also that your emotions and your thoughts are also physical. I'm not going to go into the wheres and why fors of that because that's a long, winding road. But if you just take these two things into account, our thoughts can literally change our body chemistry, and our body chemistry can change our emotions, and our emotions can change our body chemistry. And that is scientific fact. So, when we've gotten ourselves together, then we can connect a little more clearly with our inner guidance and our intuition, which is our best guide in unknown territory, which is where we are now, which is probably why we're freaking out. And, I'm not going to deny that I have been either. I mean, I said that sounds really weirdly. I'm not going to deny that I've been doing my own version of huge recalibration. I've just had to take time out and be slow with that. And I would suggest to you that if you're busily running around trying to accomplish a lot of stuff, that you might also give yourself the space to do that so that you will have a more effective and more efficient way of acting. Because again, running off of our feelings and our thoughts is not optimal. I mean, running off of them alone. I'm not trying to say leave your feelings and thoughts behind. Not at all. I'm saying this healing is about getting in touch with something that is bigger than and includes your feelings and thoughts so that you can power your feelings and thoughts and actions on something bigger than yourself, which is really good because it means A, that you'll be getting more perspective, and B, that you'll be getting more energy to do it. We can only proceed in unknown territory by inspiration and this kind of guidance. The intellect just recognizes patterns it knows, and it can put those patterns together in different configurations, and much can be accomplished by that. I mean, look, we got to the moon on that, so that's pretty amazing. But it can't really create something new, and it's clearly what's called for now. Inspiration is the only way we can really get new ideas, new actions, new feelings. And I also have experienced that personally. When I was ill, I spent a couple of years trying to research and figure and, come up with the grand plan. And none of that worked because I was in new territory. And I regard what's going on now and has been going on for quite a while in our culture, all of the injustice, as something that is like an illness in our society, in our culture. And so I'm approaching it in the same way. And I encourage you to approach it in the same way. And that is to look on it as something that needs to be healed. So let's get started with the healing. First, I'm going to do what I call a gather together healing, which is basically it's a healing to focus our attention on what we're doing here and now, instead of all the, 1,001 things that we have on our minds and on our schedules and all of that. So when we focus on where we are here and now, and also when we connect with each other, which can happen through time and space in the recording of this, then we are in our power, in our true power, not which I want to differentiate from forcefulness, which we've seen like way too much of lately. Power is not forcefulness. I think that was something that held me back for a very long time. And if that's a notion that you hold on to, I would really like you to inspect that. Because I will be giving you many examples of what power is in this healing session. And it feels really different from forcefulness. Okay, so here we go. This is the Gather Together healing to bring us into the present place and time and to focus on what we're doing here. Okay. Oh, and for people who haven't experienced my healing before, yes, I tend to do most of my healing in silence because I found it's a really efficient way to do healing. So when I go into the silent healing bits, it's really a time for you to go into yourself and feel what's happening there. You are quite welcome to watch me, but it's pretty boring. I just shut my eyes and, do what I do. It doesn't look like much. The real action is what's happening inside you. So just be as receptive as you can. And I get that life is life, and, you might not have the perfect quiet spot or the perfect whatever, but that's okay. Just be as receptive as you can. That's all that's required here. Okay, so next I'm going to do some healing work on what I call our external nervous system, which is, well, external is kind of weird because it is the webwork of connections that connects us with all other beings on the planet, including human beings, but also including non-human beings. And whether we're aware of it or not, that nervous system is always in action. I know that in psychology, there's actually been a little bit of a breakthrough on understanding this because or maybe it's neuroscience, they kind of overlap sometimes, and I read a lot on both. It's because, for instance, if you are meeting somebody, something in your brain changes when you connect with somebody. And it's not like they've reached into your brain, given you a little electrical prod or anything, right? It's that these connections that I'm talking about, these invisible but very real connections, are sending messages to each other. So whoever you meet is also having the brain change, and you're having your brain change as a result of making the connection. So that's just to give you an example of how some kinds of science see this, what I call the external nervous system. Now, of course, external is a little bit weird to say because it also winds up being part of our internal nervous systems. But I wanted to emphasize the other part because, most of us are aware that we have an internal nervous system. What we're not aware of is that it extends pretty much infinitely. And we get a lot of messages along those lines. And that's part of what's going on with the overwhelm, exhaustion, and outrage. So Here we go again and again. I'm going to go silent. Your job is to be receptive. All right. If you're noticing any differences, you first started watching this video, just recognize them because that helps them integrate into your system more. Okay. So now I'm going to work on what I consider to be another aspect of the same thing, which is a calm down of your emotional system, a kind of factory reset, you might say. It's not about encouraging you to have any particular emotion, it's just allowing the static in your emotions to settle so that what you feel becomes clear to you and what you feel becomes something that you feel and not that's sort of enveloping you and overwhelming you. Okay, so same deal. I'm going to go quiet and do an emotional calm down, and your job is to be receptive. Closing your eyes helps, but you don't have to. Here we go. Okay. And again, notice any differences you might sense. You can also check into your body and see if there is any change there, as well as your emotions and your thoughts. Okay, so now we've gotten to the point where we're going to start connecting to our inner guidance. And so that's what the next round of healing is going to be. Again, just to be as receptive and comfortable as you can. And I will go ahead and do this round of healing, connecting to your inner guidance, which is also, by the way, connecting to the cosmos. Okay. And, you know, it can be using the whole inner guidance thing because most of us have so many voices inside of us. And I will say for myself that it's taken me a lot of time and I guess you would call it training, attention hours put in to get more clear on what's really my guidance and what's really my busy little brain or my completely, out of control emotions wanting just to do something, do something, do something, and giving me a message. So I'm not going to say that I have reached perfection on this point yet. I think that it is one of those things that's a work in progress for all of our lives. But I will say this, a hint that can keep you safe in this respect, and that is this. True guidance is always peaceful and gentle. You may not be thrilled by what it tells you to do. Believe me, you might not be happy about doing what it tells you to do. But it will not be a sort of shovey, urgent kind of, you have to do this now, you have to do this. It will not be like that. So if you're getting that, that's not clear guidance. And in fact, it's really interesting to me that even in an emergency, people who are able to function well in emergencies, they kind of slip into the true guidance state, even in a very fearful situation, and are able to get the inspiration to do what needs to be done there. So it's a really valuable thing to have access to, and it's a really valuable thing to begin to form a closer relationship with. We've all got it. We've all, used it and paid attention to it sometimes. Some of you who are listening to this, probably you've worked with it a lot, but there's always more, right? So I want to do a piece now for clarity on your inner guidance. That is to say, clarity about what is your inner guidance and also clarity of hearing your inner guidance. Okay? So again, your job is to be receptive and as comfortable as possible. And here we go. Okay. The next piece I want to do is, now that we are securely gathered together in our bodies, and now that we are connected and clear with our intuition, I'd like to take us a little deeper. And this next section is going to be about opening to a deeper truth. Because, in my view, that's also what's really needed here. I think it was Niels Bohr who said that the mark of a deep truth is that it can be superseded by a deeper truth, something along those lines. Sorry, that was just doing that off the top of my head. I didn't bring the quote to this session. But what I'm trying to get at here is, we go through our lives and we sort of accumulate this idea of what's true, how life works, how we work in life, and, like, what our place is and what everybody else's place is. And that's a kind of truth. And I'm not saying that it's not a necessary truth, because, just in order to function day by day, if we were always, questioning our ability to go and turn on the tap and get water, for instance, those of us who are fortunate enough to have running water, um, that would make for a lot of very slow days where not much got done. So that kind of truth is necessary, but it needs to be recognized also as temporary, as temporal, really, because there are always deeper truths underneath it. And our intuitions are exactly what connect us with those deeper truths, right? So, whatever truth my country has been working with, and I would say even a lot of the world has been working with, it's not working. You know, it's really clearly not working. We're drowning in our own garbage, literally, in some ways. We are breathing our own garbage. We have a pandemic that's caused by our essentially disregard for the rest of the natural world. And we have people being openly murdered in the street with no idea that there will be any retribution for that murder. We also have, a president who's illegally ordering military to attack citizens of the country that they're supposed to serve and protect. So I would say there are a lot of signs that the truth that we've been running by, a lot of us collectively, is not working, and that it's time to go fishing for a deeper truth that can hold us all. And by that, I mean not just human beings, but the entire planet. That we often forget is that we are all, human beings are all meant to be a part of nature. And we have spent a lot of time in the last several hundred years conquering nature and considering ourselves separate from it, and a lot of other things that have been part of what's brought about, the essentially the debacle we're at now, right? So we clearly need another way. And my very deep feeling is that part of the reason why human beings are so crazy right now is that we have spent so many centuries forgetting how we're a part of nature, and that we're meant to be an active and participating part of it, not just sort of like grabbing what we can and running off, or, saying ooh pretty and running off and then go doing our own things without considering it as a living being. To me, this is a huge contributor to all the awfulness that's going on in the world, and has been for centuries, in my opinion. That's my thought. You don't have to agree with it, but you might want to consider it. So here's a healing for opening to a deeper truth, which will give us a new perspective and open us to new possibilities. Again, your job is to be receptive and comfortable as possible. And here we go. Okay. Now, the final piece of healing work I'm going to do is to connect your talents and what you have access to helpful work. It's sort of like what I was talking about in the beginning. We're each little nodes on a big web, and we each have our own personalities and our own backgrounds and our own skills and talents. And so, in making a harmonious world, we're going to each have different roles to play, right? So it's, you might get inspiration from somebody else, but I think it's also really important to look inside, because when you look inside, you get access to that intuition, and you use what's really yours instead of trying to copy somebody else whom you admire. There's nothing wrong with admiring people, but it's really important not to try to copy people too much, except for maybe, if you're learning some skill, yeah, definitely, you'd want to do that. But you always are going to be bringing mm, your own self, your own personality to it, your own experience, your own history, your own viewpoint, all of that. And even though we've done work here opening up all of that stuff, it's still it's your toolkit, you know? This is your toolkit for the world. So let's use that instead of looking to somebody else for their toolkit, because you know what? When we use our own toolkits that we worked so long in building, some of us, it allows us to be more consistent, to continue on, to not burn out. And that's also very important. At least it's one of the things that helps us to be consistent and not burn out. There are other things too. So, yes, I mean, if you're inspired by somebody, definitely follow them, but also check in with your intuition and see, okay, what's my particular role even in following this person, you know? Or maybe that person inspires you or that thing inspires you in to do something that's aligned with what they do, but not exactly what they do. Listen to that. Okay, so this is about connecting your own personal skills and talents and what and who you have access to in the world to helpful work that will create more harmony in the world. What that work looks like is going to be an individual thing, but the feeling of that work is something we can all feel. I spent a lot of my life singing in choirs and also small groups. And I always get the choir image when I think about this, because it's sort of like, okay, you're all singing the same piece, right? But there are different parts, and also within the different parts, there are different voices. And each of those is important, but we're all working to make one big thing, right? Okay, so here we go. Again, just be as receptive and comfortable as possible. Here we go. Okay, so check in with your thoughts and with your emotions and with the sensations in your body, and notice anything that's changed since the beginning of this video, since you've been experiencing these things. I'm going to finish by giving you a, you know, you can do this at home kind of hint. Um, One of the things about our intuition is we have to ask for its guidance. That's sort of a free will thing. So it will, like, you know, gently come in, but a lot of times in our lives, we are too busy thinking and feeling and doing stuff to let it in. So it's really a helpful thing, an important thing to remember to ask for guidance and clarity in any given situation as to what is the next step for you. And by the way, I think it's really helpful also to think in terms of what are the next steps for me or the next few steps, because once you take those steps, your viewpoint is going to be different. And so if you get like this big plan all at once and you try to adhere to it no matter what, even if your viewpoint changes, that is not going to work real well and you'll just spend a lot of time spinning your wheels. So, yeah, ask your guidance and give yourself a moment of silence to listen for a few moments. That's what meditation is about, or at least one of the things it's about, is it's quieting down the body and mind and feelings so that you can take in that information. And if this video has helped you in doing that, then I totally encourage you to come back and watch it whenever you feel like you need sort of like a boost or a refresher in that department. And I'll also give you a handy hint, one of my deeply held secrets, which is when I ask my intuition a question, when I ask it to show me something, to show me a step, I say, and repeat it in lots of different ways, in all kinds of ways, so that I'm sure to get it. Because a lot of times we can ignore our guidance because it doesn't come in the form that we think it should. So just ask, ask for it to be clear to you what that guidance would be. I really hope that this video has been helpful to you. I hope that it will continue to be helpful to you in doing whatever your work is in the world. And it might not look very big to other people, but it is still your important work in the world. Because when you're guided by your intuition, what you do and what you say and how you are is so much more effective. And if we want to create a more harmonious world, a more enjoyable world, a more functional world, we need that. Okay, so this is Sunday Oliver. If you're interested in what I do, you can go to sundayoliver.com and you can sign up on my email list there and get a free sample of my work called Inspiring Action, which might be a good segue to this one, because again, a lot of our action tends to be from a sort of forced feeling like I have to do this, or, like you're antsy and you have to do something. Inspiring action is sort of the next thing to support the work that's been done here. That is to actually get you moving from inspiration. So I recommend giving that a try if it feels like something that appeals to you. All right, it's been really great spending time with you. Be well.